If you know anything about me, I love video game history, and we got a doozy of a video today to check out. This is courtesy of the Video Game History Foundation. Did you know this existed? You didn't? Well, you need to now. Check this out right here. This is the E3, like you've never seen it before. E3, long gone. It is unfortunately dead, but I'll tell you what. I love E3. I went to, golly, 10, 12 of them during my career, maybe. I don't know. But let's see what they had to say.
This week at the Video Game History Foundation, we're kicking off a celebration of E3. The Electronic Entertainment Expo was the event for the game industry in the United States for over 20 years. And now, thanks to some new materials in our digital archive, we're taking you closer to the event than you've ever been before.
Okay, so my first E3 was in 2006. I've told the story before, but most of you probably have no idea. That's when Screw Attack first started, and an old website I used to own long time ago. It was like a starting ground, a proving ground for a lot of early content creators. Angry Video Game Nerd got their start there. JonTron posted there. The Game Theorist posted there. It was like YouTube before YouTube was a thing. But the origin of Screw Attack actually was to get into E3. And my first E3 in 2006, I literally snuck in I got in early when I stayed inside a bathroom until they opened the doors, because there's a bathroom between the outside entrance and the actual inside show floor. And I just was in a bathroom for like 45 minutes prior to them actually opening the doors. And I was one of the first like 10 people to try the Nintendo Wii that year. It was really, really cool. The lines were like 5-6 hours long there. It was nuts. I love E3. Loved it.
E3, which ran from 1995 to 2019, has become renowned as a marketing spectacle for video games at a scale and expense that we will probably never see again. But before E3, the big event for the game industry in North America was the Consumer Electronics Show, which is not a video game event.
Whoa, look at that. Look at how cool that is. We didn't see that till, 20-something years later when Star Fox 2. In fact, they kept the same logo. That is awesome. Wow, in 1995? Love that.
The main purpose of CES was to show off devices like televisions, sound systems, and cameras, which might have made sense for video games to join in on in the 80s. But by 1995, the US game industry had outgrown its original home, and it was time for them to have an event of their own.
Yep.
There was a lot of frustration with the current situation vis-a-vis trade shows. Consumer Electronics Show had two shows, one in January in Las Vegas, which was their big main show, and one in Chicago in the spring. And the industry, largely because of the game cycle, would mostly be at CES in Chicago. The problem was they were out in tents. They really were not part of the core show in the main showroom. They were relegated to a fairly sort of secondary placement.
Isn't that funny how the video games were othered by other forms of media, by VCRs and giant tube TVs? They just go, we're going to send you out in the tent. So, hey, well, let's make an alternative here. Let's actually make our own event. Turned out pretty well.
That at the time, the industry players felt really wasn't reflective of their growth and their impact on consumer entertainment.
The video game companies are outside with the refrigerators. I heard that over and over again. Well, we're out with the refrigerators. For some reason, that really stuck with me. So that was it was always a big discussion in the industry. They always felt like they were being treated poorly.
And if you ever had an opportunity to go to E3, please let me know in the comments, and let me know your best memory of E3. I'll share mine with you at the very tail end of the video.
And there was a real desire on the part of the industry to kind of break out of that perception. And so for some people, having our own show was a sort of a defining way to position the industry as an independent force in the world of global entertainment.
You know, between, like Doug said, between the formation of the association and the fact that IDG
Los Angeles
came up with a proposal, it was, pretty much serendipitous that the industry would move on and start its own event.
That's Doug Lowenstein and Carolyn Rausch, the founding...
Quick, let me back up a few seconds here real fast. This building right here, for those who have never been to downtown Los Angeles, is the LA Convention Center. This is where E3 pretty much was every year, with one lone exception where it was actually out at an airplane hangar, which I don't know if they're going to get to that here in this video, but I was at that as well. With that said, if you've ever seen a movie pretty much from the 90s to today that takes place in an airport, it was probably filmed in this convention center. It is very distinct architecture inside of it. And if I'm ever watching a movie and I see that architecture, whether it's the white beams hanging down or the glass atrium at top, you know it when you see it. And it is all over the place. Trust me, those who know, they definitely know.
Members of the Interactive Digital Software Association. Together with event director Mary Dollaher, they ran E3 for the first decade. Last year, Carolyn came to us with a substantial donation of material from the history of E3, the event itself, from the early years through the 2000s. It's basically everything they printed to promote the event.
Wow.
Flyers, media kits, programs, guidebooks, postcards, transcripts, photographs, everything from a complimentary guest pass for E3 2011
Atlanta
to a sales kit from E3 99, breaking down the attendance of E3 and telling you exactly how much it cost to put your ad on the side of the coffee cups that year.
Whoa, stop it right there. Okay, look at this. Wow. Okay, let's back up. I love looking at this stuff. Let me go and mute that for a second as we get a look at the cost associated with it. Retail spending right here, primary business focus. I love looking at stupid charts like this. I don't know if you're like me, but looking at all this, retailer spending, okay, maybe not the data here as far as the cost of this. Because that was the thing. E3 died. You notice, 2019 was the last year. And then COVID came around, and all of a sudden, the video game industry was already changing. Things were going digital, as we've seen only exemplified now. And we are at a point where physical events were no longer needed. And I don't think they were really needed. Honestly, like the last 3 or 4 years of E3, they were just kind of, it was there. It was kind of a dinosaur relic, and it happened really, really fast because games adopted digital downloads, and all of a sudden, Nintendo had their own presentations, Sony had their presentations, and all of a sudden, the idea of having a big place to showcase your games could be done on YouTube. It was very easy and kind of a relic. You can just send your demos out directly on a service that you own, and you can control the message. People will argue that it was COVID. Yeah, that just kind of that puts a little bit of fuel on the fire, but it was definitely going that way for a long time.
How much it cost to put your ad on the side of the coffee cups that year. For the record, it was $20,000.
We spent the first part of this year digitizing this new collection, and now it's ready to share. But we figured let's make a celebration out of it. So today, we're opening multiple new collections about the history of E3 in our digital archive.
The Carolyn Roush collection, containing over 1,000 pages of E3.
Okay, I want to look at this. These are advertising rates, okay, $3,000, $5,000. What I'm curious about is how much was the booth space, because that was the killer cost. I heard Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, those companies would allocate millions of dollars, like tens of millions of dollars every year for E3, as that was their big Super Bowl. And when you went in, you definitely felt it. It was tremendous.
Ephemera, the Anthony Parisi collection with around 12 hours of video footage from E3's 95 to 98, plus the 95 Winter CES that came right before, and new scans of E3 Show Daily, the daily magazine that was handed out at the event. We've also completed our collection of E3 guidebooks, totaling 2,500 pages of booth listings, schedules, and maps.
We are very aware of how interested people are in the history of E3. I mean, we've been on YouTube, we've seen all the videos that maybe people like you have made about E3 before. Well, there has never been more depth of material for researching the history of E3 than what you can find in our digital archive today. Let's take all of those collections we just talked about and put them in conversation with each other to show you what we're talking about.
From the Anthony Parisi tapes, we found this clip of somebody playing the fighting game Toe Ball #1 on the show floor at E3 1996. It's pretty cool, and we knew we had seen this somewhere before. In Carolyn's collection, we spotted this photo of the same Toe Ball booth. This is from a series of photos that were all taken around the same place at different angles. We can see that Toe Ball was being shown off at Sony's booth next to their sports games, which was right across from Microprose and a little ways down from Psygnosis. If we piece all of that together and look at the map in the 1996 guidebook,
That's
we can determine
awesome.
exactly where Tobal number 1 was being shown and what angle that video was taken at.
Wow, that's
now,
cool.
is this really necessary? Well, who
No.
can say? We know there are people who have been trying to forensically reconstruct parts of E3, but doing this level of research on E3 was practically impossible before.
Could you imagine if somebody took this information, recreated the show floor at E3, made it a VR experience? Would you be interested in attending a VR E3, or maybe just going through an E3 floor? You can't really play the games or whatever, but it would just be an experience, some sort of like a sim, if you will, E3 sim. There's all these sim games online. I think that'd be actually. I've been to a bunch of these, right? I mentioned this before, but it would be fun to recreate, or at least experience that again. And that's just me selfishly.
Now. And that's why we are so excited to bring you these new collections. E3 is really the story of the game industry coming into its own, figuring out what it was and who it was for. By preserving all these different materials, we're making it possible for anyone, from fans to academic researchers, to tell that story yourselves.
To me, the story of E3 in the 90s is really a story about an industry beginning to be taken more seriously, beginning to get the floor space or the respect that it deserved. I was able to witness huge games get unveiled for the first time. I was able to talk to developers that I, never would have had a chance to interact with otherwise, and just conduct hundreds of interviews over the years. And it was a great time. And those 90s shows were amazing. New hardware, a big transition to PlayStation, to the N64, to the Saturn, like seeing all that stuff happen, seeing the 3DO kind of phase out and everything. Like, it was a very tumultuous time there in those first 4 or 5 years of the show. And it was amazing to be able to be there and witness it. So I'm
hearing what Jeff is talking about, the amount of transition in the video game space from the mid 90s to the early 2000s. You think about the giant leaps that we saw both in graphics and sound, gameplay, just technology. In the mid 90s, this is what N64 is 96. So 94, 95, you're dealing with the tail end of the Super Nintendo, the PlayStation 1 coming out, and just the giant leaps that you're seeing all the way up until 99 with maybe the Dreamcast. It was such a unique time. And we've reached this point to where now video games, look, you can tell a PlayStation 3 game versus a PlayStation 5 game, but it's not that big of a leap, and especially like PlayStation 4 or 5. We've reached this point in video games where they're just tiny little leaps forward. It feels like everything's done. It's almost like it's like you got a season pass that you're just constantly tiny improving. You're not seeing these giant leaps, which it was very cool to be a part of that. And while I went to a bunch of E3s, I know Jeff is like an OOG when it comes to video game journalism and being in the space for a long, long time. And to say he went to those ones in the 90s, man, I was just a wee lad at that time, and I could not go. I didn't even know E3 was a thing. But I did hear about CES from, the like EGM and various game magazines. But going to E3 for the first time was quite a treat.
I'm very happy to be able to dig through some of this material. I have some of it around here somewhere, I think. But I'm really looking forward to digging through what the Video Game History Foundation has dug up for all these years of E3.
Everything we have shown you today is free for you to access in our digital archive, thanks to your support for the Video Game History Foundation. There is so much more we wanted to show you that we couldn't fit in here, so you can look forward to more videos in the near future about our E3 collections and some of the incredible things we found. And check out the Video Game History Hour podcast, where we sat down with Carolyn Rausch and Doug Lowenstein to learn more about the origins of E3.
If you never were there, it's almost hard to describe what an overwhelming, just
remember this right here. Remember this half pipe.
Overwhelmed the senses.
You had to be there is all I can say. It was amazing.
But for now, we wanted to leave you with one little surprise. One of the tapes we digitized was this 1997 video press kit from Nintendo containing footage
Hell
of their
yeah,
upcoming
let's
games.
go.
We know how important pre-release game footage is, so we digitized this tape at the best possible quality using our modified high-end VHS capture setup. And now we present, in the best quality ever seen, a solid minute and a half of gameplay from the unreleased Conker's Quest as seen at E3 1997.
Before Conker's Bad Fur Day. This is before they made it into Bad Fur Day. This is when he was just like a nice little sweet boy. And it was supposed to be like a little platformer. And then they turned it in to Bad Fur Day later on down the line. That's awesome. Yeah, more or less Mario 64 with Conker. That's awesome. Little double jump, triple jump. And then Bad Fur Day became ultimately a classic here. I love it. How cool is this just to see? I'm telling you, you guys need to check this channel out. This Video Game History Foundation. I love what they're doing. I love that they have resources to do this. And the resources ultimately come from donations and such. But they apparently they're backed by the video game industry. There's a lot of folks that are supporting them. And I think that's really, really great. We need more of that, especially with physical games going by the wayside here. So this is classic. I love this. Never, like, nobody ever seen this before. This is spectacular. You wonder about the guy who captured this one day, who was just in his office in 1997. He's like, we need some footage. Need some footage for E3. Man, that's cool. A totally different game. Totally different. Oh, that's awesome.
We'll see you again soon for another deep dive into E3.
All right, I'll put a link to them down in the description. I love it. I love that stuff. If you would like to see more of that type of like video game history, I love video game history. Let me know in the comments, because this is, you know, I talk about the culture of video games and things like that, and in entertainment. This, a special place in my heart for this. Please let me know, and if you're new, make sure you subscribe. Okay, my favorite moment, my wow moment of E3 was walking into E3 one year. I mentioned remembering that half pipe right there. Those were people for an Acclaim game, right, that they were promoting. You saw in the background there's an Acclaim logo. I remember walking in one year, and there was a half pipe. I swear to God, it was probably 20 feet tall. And when I walked into E3, there was just some skateboarders going up, doing these giant tricks. This took up so much space at E3. It was insane. I just remember walking in and being like, wow, that is insane. We did some amazing things at E3 as well. We did like a meet and greet one year at E3 with game trailers back long then. It was probably 2007, I guess, maybe 2000. Yeah, probably 2007, 2008, summer 2007, whatever. And overall, E3 was just when they say you had to be there, you truly had to be there. And I think that's one of the saddest things about it. Like I said, it was definitely a relic. It didn't make financial sense at all. But man, culturally, it was a big deal. And now we have digital events. We have, Summer Games Fest and things like that Jeff Keighley puts on. And I give Jeff a lot of crap, but I'll tell you, he has absolutely done a very good job of taking the mantle of an E3 and bringing it into a new era. But man, would it be cool to be able to go back to the Los Angeles Convention Center one more time and have one last big event. Got another video for you here. Make sure you subscribe right here. I would love if you came and joined me tomorrow.